Sweet.
All right, yeah, fuck it, man. We're live. Wow. That went quicker than normal. Episode 27, This Life in Tech. I'm Jason.
Hey, and I'm Dan.
Wow, man. What do we have to talk about this week? I think you wanted to talk about seemed like you were pretty upset about some Comcast shenanigans. And I mean, I
Oh,
don't I don't know. I've only had Comcast for a limited time in my adult life, and that's when I lived in Maryland for that year or whatever.
right,
Um,
right.
but I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say anything good about Comcast.
The TV service is fine, and actually, typically the internet service is solid. I mean, it's you have to understand the architecture, it's shared bandwidth in the community, all that kind of fun stuff. But you know, regardless of that, this was what was really interesting. So I got my own DOCSIS because why I don't know, it was like $10 a month what Comcast wants to charge you, and I'm like, well, let me do the quick math. That's $120 for the year. I can get a decent DOCSIS for $60. Let's do that. So plugged in the DOCSIS, everything looks good, and I'm hardwired into it at this particular point. On the phone with Comcast, things look great. Bam, paying for I don't know. I paid for 75, and I was getting like 90. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. So then I'm on my MacBook and wireless, and I'm like, why the fuck is my connection speed so damn slow? This can't. Well, let's go to speed test. I'm getting like 8 meg. I'm like, what? 8? I mean, so then I go back over to the my other computer that I had hardware because my MacBook I don't have an Ethernet card, and I couldn't find my Lightning port to Ethernet. So I go back to that, and bam, like 90 meg. I'm like, what? Hold on. So I call Comcast. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, oh, well, we only guarantee the speeds if you're hardwired. And I'm like, okay, but dude, I'm getting 99% degradation. What's going on? Well,
Yeah.
we can't do this, but how's your hardwire? Are you hardwired in? And I'm like, I have one. Well, looks like your speeds are good. And I'm like, I said, I'm going to try something. Because, Comcast has got their own streaming service for a price.
Hmm.
I bet you these guys do not want you streaming. So I'll go and get another Wi-Fi unit to plug into the DOCSIS. And same result in terms of I'm still connected to it, and then it to the DOCSIS. Same thing, like 8 meg. I'm like, this is because it's hardwired in. I'm like, I bet you they're Mac filtering. I bet you they see that this is not a PC, Apple, something like that hardwired in. So the wireless that I bought has, and I don't know how many of them have this or not. I couldn't tell you, but I've seen it. Well, you just went blank. Oh, there you are.
Yep.
You have the option to change. You basically clone your MAC address or put in a custom MAC address.
Right.
So we'll put in the MAC address of an Apple MacBook. So I just changed the last 2 characters. That's not TED, but whatever that number is off the MAC address, 48-bit. Poof, back to 90 meg through the wires. I'm like, these bastards are absolutely filtering based on MAC address as well. They're like, hey, you connected up a Linksys. I know you're trying to still do wireless, so we're going to filter everything off of that port as well. So here I am now. I mean, I had to spend a little bit more money than that $60 for the DOCSIS, but I would have probably had to do the same thing anyway because it would have probably still been filtering me. It's my guess. They don't want you streaming. So now I get the 90. Well, I take that back. I was getting like 85, which was fine because I'm going. I would expect some type of degradation because now I've added an extra hop and I'm on wireless. Okay, but it could be anything. But I'm just going. You sons of bitches are
Yeah. Well,
literally doing. I think what's that?
I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, that's 1% is nothing. I mean, I
Yeah,
wouldn't. I'm like you. I wouldn't worry about a 1% difference between this device and that device. I mean, there's lots of
I'm
things
only
that.
paying for 75 anyway, so
Right.
I'm
Right.
still getting more than
Right.
that.
But in the original case, when you were getting
8.
what you were rated for or more, and it drops to 1%
Yeah.
of what it should be, that's yeah, that's questionable. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. Do you really think somebody sat down? It's an honest question, man. Do you think a group of people sat down and said, "Hey, listen, let's Mac filter these assholes so that they're incentivized to essentially pay more for what they should have," or do you think it's more likely that some people sat down and said, "Hey, wait, if there's wireless present, that probably means there's multiple devices. So we should try to provide a consistent experience for multiple people. So we need to not let them all have 80 meg per second."
Um, no, I think in this particular case, not that I'm a big conspiracy theorist all the way, but we do know that Comcast had some issues with Netflix, basically, in them not paying enough. They didn't like the last deal.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought is they're literally trying to do that in order to either provide a crappy experience for people trying to stream, and them thinking it, because who's going to think it's the cable company? They're going to think, oh, this must be Netflix, or Roku or whatever it is that you're using. Well, we have a service. Why don't you come to ours? Ours is the same price, and we can give you the same types of things. You can still do this on your iPad, your laptop, your TV, whatever you want. And I think it's them trying to get additional money from those people because they know that a lot of people are going to streaming. So this is their way of controlling or maintaining some level of income for the people that want to move away to streaming. They say, hey, well, we have a streaming service. You don't have to use our cable box. You only want to do whatever? Sure, use our streaming service.
Yeah, there's something inherently wrong with allowing a company that provides cable TV to also provide you internet service. I mean, there's a conflict of interest there, right? Because
I think so.
if they just allow you to stream whatever the hell you want over their internet service, I mean, they're killing half their business. And by half, I mean just in terms of service, not market share. But in a lot of areas, Comcast is the only provider for both. Now, like when I lived in Maryland, I didn't have TV, so I never experienced their cable service. But I did experience their internet service. And I experienced the shittiness of their customer service.
Oh yeah, customer service is horrible. That's for sure.
Well, I remember when the service went out one time, and I called for support. They told me it was going to be like a week before somebody could come out. I'm like, what? A week? How is that even possible?
Yeah, it is pretty crazy as to how they do those things. I just kind of go, I just shake my head. I'm like, you could only imagine if the merger between Comcast and Time Warner had actually gone through, as that how worse it would have been.
Well, it would have been interesting. It would have been interesting to see who kind of won out in terms of hierarchy, because I've had Time Warner several times here in the West, and I've never had any issues with them in terms of service provided or customer service. I've never had an issue with Time Warner, and before that it was Adelphia, and I had both versions of it. I've never had an issue, not like I did with Comcast and their bullshit.
Yeah, I would assume Comcast would win out just because Comcast goes back and forth between being the largest internet service provider in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some organization over in Japan, they just go back and forth.
Yeah.
So that would be my guess, but I'm glad it didn't. But I mean, here I am in the area that I live. The other option is AT&T, basically through Dish. So that means you're getting 25 meg. And I'm like, 25, not enough. I don't really need any more than, actually, I probably could have gotten away with 50, but I'm not doing satellite. Just, no, I'm not doing satellite.
That's interesting, man. I don't understand how we can look at the rest of the world, the rest of the developed world, right, by implication, particularly in Asia, and the amount, well, even Scandinavia, Northern Europe, and the internet infrastructure they're able to provide to their citizens. I don't know how we sit back and we're like, fuck those socialists. You know what I mean? There's something inherently wrong with the way that industry is regulated, and it's changed massively between deregulation and regulation.
Oh, I agree. It's the government should be providing, as much as I lean a lot towards a lot of Republican-like ideas and ideals. I still say I'm a libertarian. I pick and choose what I think is best. But I believe at this point in time, internet is part of the. No, I don't. When I say welfare, I don't mean like people getting money, but I believe just like the government has to be dealing with regulation of electricity, trash removal, things like that. I think internet falls in that same category that the government needs to be providing to the citizens. It's now a part of life. You really cannot be a productive member of society without the internet nowadays. At least as we continue moving forward. I mean, who buys encyclopedias anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's at a point where you can say you'd be at a disadvantage. It's deeper than that. It's a basic human service, just like water and power.
Right.
I mean,
right. I think that is at this point. 20 years ago, no, it was a luxury. Now, I mean, it really is. It's like you said, it's more than just a disadvantage. You would literally be degrading your life, especially if you're a child growing up. There is no encyclopedias anymore, so you go online to online encyclopedia sites, and I don't mean Wikipedia, but even the schools, everything's Blackboard now. So if you don't have internet, you can't even check on your child's grades. So,
yeah, well, and depending on the district you're in, kids submit into an LMS like Blackboard or Canvas or Moodle or
I know mine do.
whatever. Yeah,
mine do. Back in Maryland, they absolutely do.
Yeah, so that boggles my mind, man. So how'd you get around it? Did you get like a little switch to put in front of it and plug all your shit into that?
No, so I have the other Wi-Fi that plugs into the DOCSIS, and then I changed the MAC address so they think it's a MacBook plugged in.
Oh, you did it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. You could have done it in other ways. Probably. I don't know. I mean, you could have probably still done it with a switch, but you would still have need something else to route the traffic. Maybe, or you could have probably gone with, say, like those. What do you call them? Power line devices.
Yeah.
You could have probably done that also because it has a MAC address and everything's hardwired in. Could have gotten done in a number of ways. Basically, what you had to me, or at least what it seems like with this particular test, at least, anything you plugged in that was not essentially coming from like my one laptop is a Lenovo, and then the other one's a MacBook. The Lenovo has a Ethernet port in there. It worked fine.
Right.
And even when I took that one and put it on wireless, same result as the MacBook. So it was not. I mean, to me, that I have no reason to believe why they're not filtering at this point. I'm not going to go spend any more money to figure it out. To start bringing in other devices, start plugging them in, because.
Well, I mean, you can easily do that just by continue cloning the OID part of the Mac to different manufacturers, right? Because there's a big difference between an Intel chipset and an Atheros chipset, for instance.
Right, and like TP-Link, like those. So the Wi-Fi that I've got here is actually TP-Link.
Right.
But I take that back. I also did another one, which is a Zoom. So two different brands, because I had two of them here. So the Zoom gave me the same result.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they're clearly filtering on the manufacturer and the type of device.
And I'll post a video blog or some type of document on the site for any of our viewers to take a look at.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting, man.
Especially for the Sultan of Snake Oil, because he's probably watching in right now.
Too chicken to join. Well, I think people might be surprised on how much more prevalent this type of filtering takes place. I wouldn't guess that it's just Comcast. I mean, if they figured out the business model, whichever way it is, right? Whether you want to assume the best in that they're doing it to try and give a consistent experience across people, which I don't think I believe. They just don't have a history to suggest they think that way, right? Or you want to think that they're doing it to induce you to get their service, which they clearly have a history of thinking that kind of way.
Speaking of those kind of things, something else I just thought of, which I read, the other day.
Yeah.
Did you read that shit about Wells Fargo?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, because this has to do with our life and technology. For those that don't know, Wells Fargo They had to fire like 5,500 employees because they were setting up unauthorized accounts because they got paid because they have a quota and they got paid. And Wells Fargo got fined some ungodly amount of money.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, for all of our viewers out there, especially if you are doing some type of online banking, make sure you're checking your accounts that you don't all of a sudden have other accounts linked, by your provider, if it's Wells Fargo, whoever. That's a pretty shitty thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was talking to somebody the other day about this. To think that these things don't happen, or that they only happen when somebody's being malicious in a way where they're actually attacking something, right? To think that that's the only case for it is to be ignorant of human behavior, right? Human behavior is pretty straightforward, right? We all have at least ourselves to feed, if not other people. There's a clear incentive to try and minimize your output to maximize your minimize your input to maximize your output, right? So,
Yeah, sure.
you're right. If I'm getting a commission on how many bank accounts I open, and you give me access without supervision to create accounts, the fuck do you think's gonna happen? It's only a matter of time before somebody's like, "Oh, I can just create accounts, and I just get a bigger check." Okay. I mean, how can you fault the person for that? It's the system's fault. It's not the person's fault. I'm not saying
where's the
they
checks
should.
and balances at?
Yeah, I'm not saying they shouldn't be fired. That's not my argument. But on a human level, you can't blame them. I mean, they did what they had to do to move forward. What's wrong with the system that it incentivizes that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the wrong message. And again, if I had to guess, some of those 5,500 people that were fired from this were probably some of the people that were supposed to be supervising. But then again, they were probably in on it, because if you're supervising, the way all that sales stuff works is, it's like a pyramid scheme. All these people down here doing it, and they keep going up. That manager's making the money too, because they're like, hey, I got 20 people doing this. That means I've met my quota also. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, right? All sales is a Ponzi scheme. I can't think of one exception to that. It's all a fucking Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we don't need salespeople, or I blame them, but let's call it what it is. It's all a tiered premium commission-based service. So, and look, it didn't require anybody to really collude. I mean, there wasn't a conspiracy necessarily in the legal sense. It's just, why would you say anything? If you're getting free money, you're not incentivized to be like, hey, man, you shouldn't do that.
Right, right. That's what I tell people all the time, Ian, in terms of this. Like, hey, where are their ethics? No, this was like, correct me if I'm wrong on this particular word, but this would be kind of like hedonism. I did what was only benefit to make myself feel good. Isn't that the definition for hedonism?
You could probably lump it in there, man. I think it's baser than that. It's just basic, dude. It's no different than the cheese at the end of the maze for the mouse. I mean, it's exactly what it is. No different. It's actually an interesting point, because it's the exact same rationale for why Comcast decided to filter traffic to incentivize you to get their streaming service.
Yeah.
I mean, you can not like it, you can disagree with it, but they're not acting in a true sense of evil. I mean, right?
Yep. So here's going to be what's funny about the whole Comcast thing. I have a guest that's going to be staying with me for about 2 months. That person is going to get the Wi-Fi that is filtered. I'm not giving them access to the one that gives you the big, large. So he's getting the filtered one.
I mean, and if we want it to change, it's not legislation like net neutrality, because it's similar in this case, right? In terms of tiered service. You have to change the whole incentive model, and that requires a human behavior change. I mean, why did Comcast make that decision? Because they're beholden to their shareholders, and if they don't perform, right? I mean, they're not going to exist as a company. So don't blame them, really. I mean, it's the whole system's fault, which is interesting. It ties us back to your point about being a libertarian, because, I mean, we've said before we both are. How about this horse shit talk about human behavior modeling of Gary Johnson being asked a question and saying, rightfully so, I don't know what you're talking about? And immediately the internet's like, this guy can't be president. He said he didn't know something.
Yeah, what do you want him to do? Make it up? I would rather you say, hey, I don't know.
Well, clearly people want to be lied to. Clearly. I mean, look at the incentive system. You have the evil witch of fucking Oz vomiting into a cup,
Yeah.
right?
During the 9/11 ceremony.
Yeah, as she's spewing lies out of the other side of her mouth. And then you have the scarecrow,
Yeah.
the Tritan scarecrow. Equally, I mean, now look, again, I don't think I blame them as human beings. They're doing what they have to do based on the incentive system outlined for them, right?
Hey, I still think Donald Trump is doing this. This is like one big, huge show that Ashton Kutcher created back in the day called, I think it was Ashton Kutcher, did Punked?
Punked, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what's happening right here. Donald Trump keeps going, I think I'm going to see what happens next. I'm just going to keep saying stuff and see if they finally decide to not keep, not cheering me on. And no matter what he says and does, everyone's like, yeah.
Well, and at some point, man, you hit that tipping point where it's just group conformity. I mean, if enough people are cheering around you, most rational people aren't going to be like, I'm not going to cheer. I mean, look, the perfect example of this, actually, the perfect example of this is the Pledge of Allegiance in school. I don't know about your experience in middle school and high school, but every morning at school I went to, they did the Pledge of Allegiance over the PA system, and you were incentivized to stand and recite the pledge. And I refused. For 6 years, I refused to do it.
Why did you refuse?
What?
Why did you refuse?
Because fuck you. That's why.
Oh, well, I'm just curious.
I mean, because I didn't like the concept of being told what to do and feeling the obligation to recite some ridiculous piece of shit poetry. And I surely wasn't going to swear allegiance to a deity. I mean, in the course of it.
Yeah, this is like, and speaking, I mean, I stand. I don't have any issues in doing it. And I stand during the national anthem, things like that. Because that's just what I feel that is right for me.
Sure.
There's a lot of people making a really big deal out of Colin Kaepernick not standing. You know what? It's your right. You don't have to stand.
Right.
I don't fall. I mean, I think that because he was saying, hey, he's doing this for this social movement. I'm like, all right, great. Now you've got everyone's. If you were doing this to call attention, you've got money, you've got a camera, you have got a forum. If you believe that there's a lot of the social injustice, which I do believe that there is, but he certainly has a much bigger opportunity to reach more people. What are you going to do about it, Colin?
Right.
I mean, that's just
right.
If you want to bring up the words of whoever from Malcolm X to Martin Luther King, whoever you want to talk about in that big case, because you say, hey, you believe that there was social injustice and you're going to do something, and that's why you're not going to stand during the national anthem. Hey, fine, great, but don't stop there. Take it to the next, make it to the next step.
Well, I mean, when I did it, man, I was like in my teens, obviously, right? First of all, and second of all, it's just like, well, I mean, you can't make me, so why would I? I mean, I don't feel like the point is, and the point I'm trying to draw to like the Comcast thing and all this other stuff, and Gary Johnson, and is if you don't have to, why would you? And the only reason most people do is because everybody else around them is doing it. And that's I don't think that's a particularly insightful comment. I mean, psychology research has shown us for decades that that's true.
I can say that. I always I do what I feel is right for me.
All right. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't do things. I've only recently become more of a fan of the new Point Break movie that came out, and only for a particular concept of. In the movie, the Utah character winds up doing some trick and his buddy dies. And so later, when he winds up meeting the Brody character, he's like, yeah, but he was doing he was doing this because I was doing it. And Brody's like, no, dude. Once he chose the line, it became his. You didn't force him to make that choice. It became his line. So. That aspect I thought is really great. No one can force you to do anything. Once you choose to do that path, you cannot blame anyone but yourself.
Sure.
And that part of that, which was completely different than the original Point Break, there was none of that kind of stuff in there. So I like
No.
that they got that more spiritual aspect in there. Not that the movie is necessarily a great, film, but I like that aspect of the movie where they were like, hey, once you make that choice, once you commit to that line, even if you were following someone else, it is now your line, not that person you were following, because you
Sure.
committed to it. You are pot commit.
Yeah, and I think it's important to differentiate between what influences us to choose lines compared to our personal responsibility once we have chosen and what we do after the fact. I mean, I think a lot of people conflate those two and put them together, and they're two separate issues. There's two separate issues. And I don't think anything absolves you of your responsibility once you're on a line.
Nope.
But I think it's good to understand what led you to that.
Sure.
And group conformity is an effect. I mean, it's measurable.
It is. There's not a lot of people that are willing to go against the group.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap this up. Here's my final thought, and this takes us to the Comcast thing. Because when I had Comcast, I had my own modem too. Because fuck you, I'm not renting your equipment. So if I have my own, why is the system set up in such a way that they have to have access to it in terms of pushing down a config, right? Because I mean, where's that MAC filtering taking place? Is it taking place in that? Do you think it's taking place in that modem, or is it taking place at a CO somewhere?
So I'm going to guess that it's happening at the modem. And the reason why is I'm going to assume it's not, or I'm going to assume it's an actual router rather than a switch or a layer 2 device. And so, we know from a networking perspective, after every hop, the MAC address that winds up being changed into the frame happens to be the gateway back. So they're having to do it locally. Now they've pushed down that config, and I'd be willing to bet, since it is mine, if I were to jailbreak it, we'll say, because I can't think of a better word right now, and take a look at the actual config they pushed down, I bet you I would find stuff in there like that.
Well, and
that's my guess.
I haven't looked at it, but it is something that at least Comcast, your modem has to be DOCSIS compliant to a specific specification, and it has to be specific manufacturers.
Yep.
You can't just have any, let's say, DOCSIS 2.1 compliant modem. It has to be that plus specific manufacturers. So I wonder if it's beyond the config. I wonder if there's something in the firmware.
You think? Well, that could very well be.
Yeah, in combination with the config that they push to it.
That could be. Because like Comcast says, hey, these are the ones that we recommend, right? If you don't use one of these, we can't necessarily guarantee your service. So I bet you they have an agreement with them that says, hey, here's what we need in the firmware for us.
Yeah, and it could just be a little bit flag off on. If you're on our service and you're this type of modem, then bit on, turn on your MAC filtering and read the list of MACs to filter one way or the other out of this config. That's the logical way to do it. So I wonder what would happen if you patched that firmware such that it didn't read that bit anymore and it stayed off. I wonder if it would still work.
That's a good question. I don't know. What I would like to do is, because I bet you the communication between Comcast Central and my DOCSIS for that config, I bet you it's not encrypted. And so if I could wind up, if there is a tap for coax, then I, basically wipe your device and tell them you need to reset up and watch the config come down and see if it's in there. I bet there probably is a device somewhere. Probably, it wouldn't surprise me if Hack 5 has something like that, because they seem to have everything else.
Yeah. Well, it used to be common back in the day to push your own configs up to your modem. And, it would take a while for them to get overwritten, but while you had your own on there, you could burst your bandwidth way up.
Okay.
There was all kinds of fuckery you could do, and then they by a standard, they kind of locked out your access to your own modem, which is crazy, right? I mean, you own it. This isn't a rent-own situation. You bought that, but you're locked out of it. You can't see what's on it. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, they can't prevent me from getting access to it. I mean, it's mine. I can, if I want to do it, I can do it. It's a matter of time. And
yeah. Well, and it's a matter of what they do once you have access, because they'll know. I mean, right? They'll see that the config changed when they try to push down the next version, and it'll flag your account. Yep. And what they do after the fact, you have no control over. Right? But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's your device. You can surely try to access it, and you'll gain access to it at some point.
Yeah.
What they do after it, I mean, that's where the fuckery ensues, right? And we have this weird social contract where I'm paying you for a service, but you continually get to revise the terms. I mean, it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons with a DM that doesn't play by the DM rules. You know what I mean? Like he's always fudging his rolls.
Yep.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. That's crazy shit. I'm glad I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah. And I know Verizon does not do this because at the other place I have Verizon and wireless to get everything. Further away I move from the wireless unit, the less throughput I get, which is the way it should work.
Right. All right, man. I think that's an interesting thing. I'm interested to see how it pans out. Now I kind of want to watch my own. I have DSL where I'm at. I don't have cable, but I've had cable in the past quite a bit. I don't mind it. You know, it works. But I kind of want to. I'm interested now, man. I want to see what your results are.
I'd like some of the other people to validate what I've got. See what happens.
Yeah, because there's surely a shitload of people on Comcast. I mean, they basically control the whole Eastern Seaboard.
All right. Hey, maybe there's a class action lawsuit, and we'll at least get $1.37.
Oh my God.
Because really the only people in a class action lawsuit to get money out of this are the lawyers. So they take their money off the top.
Yeah, there's somewhere in the mix of top shitty. I mean, it's guidance counselors, HR people, lawyers, and United States-based ISPs. That's like my top 5 of shit. Like, we don't need you. You're not getting on the space arc. I personally won't allow it.
Nope.
Oh, man. All right, dude.
Episode 27.
That's in the
bag, right?
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Test your modems out, see what's up, report back to us, and we'll see what... You know, by the way, real quick before we go, man.
All right.
I was thinking sometime soon, maybe for our 30th episode as an anniversary, we should do like a live call-in show where people can stream in their comments. Because we're going to switch over to YouTube now instead of Hangouts, since Hangouts apparently is dead. I have no idea why. I'm really tired of this shit, dude. I mean, I paid like $1,500 for the privilege of being a Glass Explorer to have the whole program canceled. I looked at the HoloLens, the developer edition is $3K, and I'm like, why the fuck would I pay you?
Yeah, because knowing you're going to cancel it in 18 months.
Right. Anyway, man, I'm going off track, but I think we should do a live comment broadcast. So maybe for episode 30 for our anniversary.
Sounds great.
All right, everybody. Have a good day. Enjoy the content. Like, subscribe, friend us. Bye.
Peace.